Welcome everyone to another live stream. We did it some years before. It is this time of the year again. Apple Macbook batteries at its finest. That is the inside of an Apple battery. That is a smart battery controller. I made a dedicated video there, and the issue is that unlike any other company, like if you have some vintage MacBooks, right, the pretty ones, not like the new stuff, the pretty stuff, right, the black stuff, yes, it's broken, yeah, it's a serious defect. So the issue is that the Apple batteries, unlike any other batteries, if they are discharged, they set a permanent fault bit and will not charge again, right? And the crazy thing is that with like any other, I have this with no other battery, right? Apple always, like this is fully, like yes, I have two. These are my first-hand ones. I use them in production. So look how kind of sort of pretty they were, right? That is x86. And so the issue is if you have some batteries like this one, it's like you leave it 6 months and they're dead. And the problem is all other cheap other vendors, Dell, HP and stuff, you can usually charge empty batteries. Even I have an aftermarket battery for this one. You can, it's empty, it's laying on the shelves for weeks and months and years. Even the aftermarket replacement battery, you can still charge. Only to my knowledge, I mean, maybe there are some other snowflake special ones. I made a dedicated video 2 or 3 years ago, but I need it again. So the issue is smart battery controller, so they will not charge, right? You can leave them in there, they will not charge. I confirmed that some years ago, I hacked that, I correlated some other talks. There were some security talks a decade ago. Security researchers can explode Apple batteries because they have a password and so on. And from the security talk, 2 years or so ago, 2 or 3 years, previous video, I will probably link it to this channel. Thanks to those security researchers who peeled out the top secret password, I already wrote the code, right? So what we want to do today, so I have code. You can, like in contrast to popular belief, you can usually revive those cells. They are not dead. They're certainly aged and not perfect. Maybe half the capacity, but hey, half the capacity still better than zero capacity, right? So instead of buying aftermarket things, the problem is also, this actually is an aftermarket one, at least the cover. So that is the original cell that I showed you, that is the original cell. The problem with the aftermarket ones are, I brought one aftermarket one, and it looks like garbage, right? It's a glossy plastic or so. Yeah, it's glossy plastic when the MacBook is matte, finished. It looks like shit, right? And so what I've done, why do I have this stuff here? Theoretically, I could still use the cell or play with the charge controller. But the thing is, this aftermarket cells, I soldered the aftermarket cells into the original battery housing because just the plastic was such low quality, not good looking crap. Anyway, also I have an aftermarket, ironically I also have an aftermarket battery, like I brought it 10 years ago. I have an aftermarket battery for this one as well, so that is the original cell, that is dead. The aftermarket one still charges, but the problem, so I opened that here already, right, previous video, inside, right, like what you do at work. You probably want to see this in full, right? And the problem with the aftermarket battery is that the size doesn't fit. I mean, beside, yeah, the aftermarket finish is also not identical, and also it is 0.5 millimeter higher, so it stands out from the case, which is like aftermarket battery, so low quality. So this is the original. This is the original Apple quality. And here's the temperature sensor, by the way. And so what I do, I plug in here a power supply, I pre-charge the cells a little bit later at work. Also, this is glued right. So I mangled that a little bit because there were not so many disassemble instructions on the internet. So yeah, probably recurrent pro tip, use more hot air. Usually hot air is a solution for most things, because I didn't know how it's glued, how whatever, so I didn't heat it enough as my recurring fail, right? I usually don't heat stuff enough. I mean, it still fits, it's okay-ish. I mean, it's inside, so I mean, yeah, even if you pry it out so violently. So, but the thing is, like, even open, so more hot air, obviously, even opened, so I think you need to pre-charge it. If you test this, leave in the comments below. I didn't want to not test it, and also, like, even the original battery, like Apple quality, the original battery stands out there at 10ths of a millimeter, which is Apple quality right there, 10ths of a millimeter, but the aftermarket one stands out 0.5 millimeter. Like, the aftermarket one literally is higher than the feeds that surprisingly are still all there, which is obviously unacceptable, right? Anyway, so I have the code already. The code is even in T2, but today we wanted, how long was the introduction? Introduction 7 minutes. Professional. Of course, I published this code, being a good open source citizen for 25 years. I have the code. I have already, of course, I had people already contacting me, right? The usual stuff. You do amazing stuff, people contact you. I have this patch here in T2, which is our amazingly successful and increasingly simply good Linux distribution. So that is somewhere here, package Linux, patch disabled, ACPI SBS smart battery whatever system unbrick patch disabled. So that is as outlined. Warning, use at your own risk. Don't sue us when your battery, MacBook, house or anything else burns down. But potentially unbricking, it worked for me, Apple Macbook batteries. And again, other cheap crap just charges, right? Even probably an old Tesla or whatever, or this other legit street cars, one of a kind prototype delivery van thing. A decade later, even this shit still charges. Only Apple. What happens is, if the charge is too low, the microcontroller sets in the flash of this microcontroller a permanent failure bit. So here's some, so this is a code, I have it already, RxR wild hacking. So what I want to do today, so the problem with that is, so it works, so that's, which obviously it took me a day to like peel all those magic values out of disassembly and security researchers. So somewhere's a password, right? So that what that does is it needs to unseal the battery. So it reads this permanent eFuse status here for the FATs and whatnot, FAT status and so on, permanent failure status. And then if it is a permanent failure, we need to, the problem is we cannot just reset this bit. We need to send a magic Apple specific password, top secret, which probably unseals the password, probably was, maybe that's the password, right word, SPS battery. Don't quote me on that, that might be the password. Probably, yeah, that should be unseal. As this is a little bit poor man's error handling, but good enough, should be 0, we accumulated, whatever. It might mix some bits, but probably it doesn't. So this is probably the password, that is Apple's magic secret here. And we are good citizens, so we seal it, right? So we send the password like, hello, we are really Apple at the factory and we want to set some bits. Then we clear the permanent failure bit, which probably this was a permanent failure command. I probably should have commented that more. So that is ACPI system management bus right here on this ACPI smart battery system battery. Permanent failure bit stuff. What do we clear? Probably this was some permanent failure clear command. I probably copied this from some specification. I probably should have documented it even more. And then we seal it again. So unsealing, so value 20 here of this reseal command just being good citizens, not leaving the battery not password protected. So what we want to do today, so the problem with that is, each time, like I now have a dead MacBook again because I didn't use it for, surprise, I didn't use a vintage MacBook for a year. But now I wanted to test our T2 release, spoiler alert, best Linux distribution, and the battery is dead again. So we need to do it again. Every year we need to unbrick our battery. Yay! So this time I want to improve it a little bit. So watch Linux kernel programmer, do some programming. So let's cross-compile this. So I want to change that to always include the code, but we want to be a little bit on the safe side. And we will change this code today, further maybe upstream version, or at least shipping it in at least our amazing Linux distribution by default. However, adding a new module parameter like unbrick battery or unbrick Apple battery or so that we can safely, fingers crossed, programming mistakes and bugs were not made. We can leave this code always in, because now I have the issue, I have a new T2 release, like the issue is all production kernels do not include this code, right? And so to unbrick the battery, I now would need to build a specific kernel and run it again. And with this module parameter of being able to mod probe SBC battery or whatever, unbrick Apple battery that we will add now, you can then use the next release of this T2 amazing Linux distribution, boot the recovery install ISO or USB thumb drive, and remod probe the SBC battery module with unbrick my battery, please. And then I can just always unbrick the battery and not, like, obviously I don't each time want to build a custom kernel with this stuff. So also I have previously not tested this on this battery. So basically I also will test this on the black polycarbonate battery, which previously I had not tested. Previously I've only used this 2 times already. So it's tested 2 times. It's not tested once, but 2 times on the silver aluminum MacBook Pro, whatever, 3,1 or whatever that was. So I will also test this on the black. I hope it works on the black batteries. So where is my Linux kernel here? So we go here, we go into our Linux kernel directory. We apply this patch, which maybe we should we? Let's hope it still applies. I've not applied this in a year or 2. So that is conf-dir unbrick disabled. I also wonder. Okay, this succeeded. Then let's move. So that is ACP ISPS for Smart Battery System or something of that sort. Let's move the original file. Let's store this as vanilla because that is what our fixed file diff expects. Then let's add a kernel module parameter here. So here comes the real programming part of actual real kernel development. Let's quick check there. 0 frames, had the same issue. Had to buy a new battery. So yeah, that is what we're here for, right? Not having people to buy a new battery. Don't worry, battery height on the new MacBooks minus about twice in size now. Pregnant. Yeah, I also have that. I also have that, of course, also firsthand. So watch another here, Apple quality, right? Engineering. In retrospect, I should not have brought this. I didn't even use it that much. That is so like pregnant battery, right? This is fully closed because is it even? It's like it's pregnant. Amazing. And thankfully it still works. I mean, it's like I need to order a new battery for this one. I mean, obviously this This is swollen, that is pregnant, that is making new battery cells. It was a mistake to buy it. I brought it running my business, and being a programmer, I thought like traveling by train and plane and train and stuff and working on the go. The problem is I always hated like this display is too small, right? This is a 11-inch or whatever. So in my opinion, also like I hated this Apple design, way too large bezels, right? But we digress here a little bit. I hated this. And this is an early generation. That is the only MacBook Air I ever brought, the first and the last. It's not the first generation. It's like MacBook Air 3, whatever, whatnot. The first had this stupid only one USB port or whatever nonsense. But it is that generation that didn't have OpenCL, so it was again, as so often, relatively short-lived on even macOS support and performance because it never had OpenCL support, I believe, because Intel integrated whatever 945 3100. Actually, I can check that. I usually have it listed here. Like, yeah, you buy some stuff, the display is too small, the bezels are too large. Like, Apple, really not a good design company, in my opinion. The display, it should have been a 12-inch display with all this oversized bezels. Mobile, Apple, I usually listed here, so that's the only one I had. So that is i2677, and that is Intel, wrong listing, VGA, Intel 3000 or Intel second generation Core VG. Why is this not? This is listed shitty. Intel Corporation. I expected here some 3000 or 900. Thank you very much. But anyway, so module parameter, programming in C. Param, does it have, here's some module parameter. So we have here already cache time, smart battery systems, ACPI, so cache time, module parameter, param description, so we can thankfully just copy that here. We call it unbrick, or Apple unbrick or whatever. Static, do we have bool in the meantime for Linux kernel? Okay, you know what, let's leave it like this, let's not make typing and stuff in the Linux kernel. Yeah. Apple unbrick or whatever. Of course, default off. So the point of this is to be able to ship this code. We don't want to run it by default. Do they have, that is module. Do they have booleans? Oh, they have booleans. Module param array, ignore control error bool. Okay, we can do a bool, that's amazing. The future is now. And description, check permanent fault bit and try unbrick that Apple batteries. And then do we need cache time? Okay, that might be all that is needed. So this module macro stuff does all the elf magic of registering this for the Linux module parameter system, and then we have here we just need seal. So what do we have here? Wild hacking, so value, manufacturing status, that probably is from me, right? Test and test on seal and unbrick Apple batteries. And so we need to guard all of this with if Apple unbrick. Did we call it like that? Yeah, we probably did. If Apple, so much to pressing undo, unbrick. And so what it indentation. Okay, they have here full top indentations. It sucks a little bit for this long stuff. How do we... I usually prefer like 2. This is for me a little bit too excessive. I mean, we probably don't... I mean, I can later just in the patch edit that if I ever wanted. And also probably such polishing I usually do later. That's probably all we needed for that. And people always ask me, how did I get to do everything? Because I just do it, right? Battery's bricked, we reverse it. We want to run this code somewhere, we just patch the Linux kernel. If you are wondering how to get into that, just do, recommendation, just do what you need. If your GPU doesn't work, or you USB-C deck or whatever, USB-C dock, just test it. So Apple unbrick, probably this was some safeguard testing. Maybe we don't even need that, probably theoretically, I guess. We have here, because we read here the status of this manufacturing status here. I guess this is just me testing that it works. Battery slot battery, so that was probably code that was there, present, not present, offset test. Apple unbrick. So these are just the commands. We probably, what did they do here? We probably should theoretically add nice commands here for that. It's funny that we can have 4 batteries. Are there laptops that have more than 1 battery, more than 2? But anyway, it doesn't matter too much. Let's test compile that. Let's see what else do we have there. Ordered new battery. Also still couldn't get in touch by Wi-Fi drivers working on the MacBook. Drivers don't work with existing drivers. That is a pity that this never was upstreamed. Yeah, I always hated this touch bar. I not once in my life, as much as that's the crazy stuff, right? As I said it before, as a Linux developer, I voluntarily purchased my first iBook around 2003 or so, plus minus a year, something of that sort. Yeah, probably 2002, 2003. And I voluntarily purchased an iBook because at that time it was the best performance and best supported on Linux, especially on most x86 systems. Suspend and resume was at its infancy and totally not stable. And I voluntarily purchased it. I trashed the macOS CDs. I never used macOS for the first years. I instantly installed our Rock Linux, aka nowadays T2 Linux, instantly, and I was running it for years as my work machine, right? And I suspended, like when all my friends and family and university colleagues and stuff with x86 laptops, they all didn't have stable, like even on Windows it crashed once a week, but on Linux 20 years ago you could not suspend. I mean, often you could not suspend at all. Like if you could suspend, it usually corrupted sooner or later, usually at the second suspend and resume, but definitely not longer than a day, like if you were lucky and we're not using any exotic drivers. And on my, theoretically be smart, like purchase this solution for your problem, for use case that works the best for you, saves you the best, saves you the most money. And this was actually, this iBook, I have to say, of all the few things I auctioned that. Probably still after 2 years or 3, I probably still got quite some relatively good money, I guess. Regret it a little bit because it was one of those, like before they made this all solid white case, it was this translucent inside white coated stuff that looked, in my opinion, better, much better, fancier quality. But the problem is, and probably why I auctioned it on eBay, it only had USB 1. It had Firewire, I guess, 400 probably, but it only had USB 1, and that day I worked with USB devices and stuff. Like having a laptop that did not have USB 2, this very few Mbit USB 1 really wasn't that much fun for anything serious. So yeah, I mean, probably being a student, not having any money left on a weekly basis, probably that was the right decision. Just, yeah, I guess the USB 2 iBooks had all, correct me if I'm wrong, but they switched to fully colored plastic, which in my opinion looked really cheap. This transparent plastic looked so much better, but yeah, this kind of stuff doesn't make sense to get today. Yeah. So I wonder if that built already. The thing is, we need to build some things in order to link modules. We don't need to build all the 5,000 modules here, but quite some in the VM Linux. Otherwise the Linux kernel mod probe stuff doesn't mod probe. Because to link the modules, the Linux kernel and build system and compiler and linker need the main Linux kernel image to resolve symbols and or other symbol post-module building symbol resolution, like inter-module dependency resolution information. And that's also why Epic threadripped it on Horizon 7950X. Obviously, I don't want to wait a day nowadays for that. That's the crazy stuff, right? This was my work machine, right? So this was my main T2 work machine there around 2006, and I used it, like all of this machine. If you're wondering why do I have so much stuff, all of the stuff I used for many years, like 4 or 5 years, until it really was painfully slow, annoying to use. Was it drivers ACPI? Did it work like that? Darn. So this one's not so great. I wish this would work even better. Drivers ACPI SBC battery. I think that's not it. This even built everything. Cool. Let's resave the file just so that Make rebuilds it to see if we get any warnings. Maybe we didn't. Did it even? Maybe it built something. Yeah, this is modern stuff. You are not even sure if it rebuilt that. Did this build something? I need to investigate if is there really not a better verbose build thing. Yeah. Okay, maybe that built. Maybe that is all we wanted for today. Unbrick, permanent fold, and try. Maybe try to unbrick. I mean, maybe unbrick is already dead, right? Just not to have it more than 80 columns. Unbrick, let's do here some review paths. Maybe this should, what do we have here? Print K, maybe this should be PR info also. Nah. Filter, manufacturer status. Yeah, I should polish that a little bit more. If I'm not sure, the problem with this kind of stuff is, do the Linux kernel people even want it upstream? I have no problem with keeping it in our amazing Linux distribution. Not the worst thing to have some features. And so far in 3 years, since when do I do this? Battery hacking, log off package, Linux, SB disabled. 2019 maybe? Smart battery? Wow, that is way more years than I thought. In this time, thankfully, this battery stuff doesn't change too often, so yeah. Maybe I should check if they, but I know the answer. I mean, probably asking upstream, hey, do you want an Apple battery unbrick thing here in your kernel? Probably the answer is like, go the F away with your Apple nonsense. Unseal, permanent fault, unseal and reset. So that sort. That probably was the password command stuff. So theoretically, so that should be 0, right? Like if we wanted to make that any better, we probably only should run this like, hey, 4 years later, some more error handling. Probably we could also only print this if it failed, like basically if result. That's the difference between prototype, like previously this was a proof of concept prototype. It still needs some cleanups, but this is already a little bit better than. So probably we should only do that if it previously, if we could unseal it. I probably should look up. I believe I found this command in some specification 4 years ago. Probably if result print it. Actually, so unseal, probably only need to seal it if it succeeded, right? Seal. Theoretically, I should rework this to use PR info. I can try this next revision. I don't want to make too many experiments today. I just want my batteries unbricked, and I will probably use this more often. I have to say I really like, I mean, the irony is I didn't even like this. I said it before, I never liked the aluminum look of this. And also the keys, I hated these keys, by the way. I always, like when I fast typed, I remember I always got stuck, right? They have a sharp edge there, so flowing over the, like, yeah, on this corners, like on this, like how can Apple for years produce a keyboard where typing professionals, if they fast type, scratch their finger skin there on the edges. Also, I hated to get electric shocks, right? I always, from all the aluminum stuff, I always, not sure up to today, but definitely my Retina MacBook Pro, I always, like, not always, depending on the local electricity circuits, in many countries more, like in Germany least often, but in France, USA, Taiwan, Russia, Brazil, I have no idea what's up there with the switching power supply. I often get, and many people say this, right? Google that, electric fist, touching aluminum Apple products. I hated it, right? And I liked this black, beautiful black, right? Remember, like, that is so silly, right? Like, black, so beautiful. A pity that it's partially, yeah, I mean, could live with this. The irony is that is a zero defect, right? It's this very thin plastic edge, broke for nearly everyone. The irony is that is a nearly last day of its extended warranty period case switch, and the irony is it broke. It's brand new, switched by Apple, warranty replacement as per usual, and just some month after the last case swap replacement here, the freaking edge broke again, right? That is. But yeah, I mean, of course, nowadays the performance and heat core to do Intel i945 or whatever. But I will use them more often now. I just love these retro machines, and I will just, like, it's like they are, I say it so often, like thin client. I just like these machines and keeping this tested. Also, pro tip, I tested them yesterday with our amazing news distribution, which we want to release any day now. And there is some new bug and regression, no surprise, right? For this black MacBook, it doesn't fully boot somehow, it gets somehow stuck. So much to Itanium, nobody cared. x86, nobody freaking, whatever. New bugs, timers, timer code or security mitigations fail there, something failed there. So yeah, I guess it is, yeah, I don't know if the Linux kernel, I believe, do they have if without, what is the kernel code style for grabbing for all ifs? That will be many, but maybe reverse match that. Do they do that? Okay, they do that a lot. So I guess that might be fine. Just checking if we ever wanted to submit this. Okay, this was excessive, but I guess that build right. We could do one full build. Oops. And then I will test this later. And of course enable that, right? So then in the future you can just load any future T2 Linux release after 2310 and have this amazing Apple smart battery, smart, right? And yeah, have this unbrick for you playing along at home. I guess, did I KO that? I did KO that, right? So we could mod info that. We get there param. No, this doesn't have the new param yet. This has only cache time. What the heck? I thought we rebuilt that. Does this not work? Nah. Details. So let's, yeah, you can never test enough. It is, yeah, it's somewhat funny that such relatively popular, I mean, sure, they are 15-year-old, but should this somewhat simpler hardware from just 15 years ago not just work on the Linux kernel? I know some people hate obsolete retro hardware. I mean, theoretically there are, I mean, it's also crazy that there's so much bloat that even YouTube would be slow, right? I mean, not even to speak about modern video codecs, but it's somewhat strange that we let everything bloat so much, also from the internet browsers, YouTube, that once state-of-the-art, sure, state-of-the-art 15 years ago is not state-of-the-art anymore, but that higher-end Intel Core to dual core at least, that you can't watch, like for your kid, YouTube comfortably is also, I mean, you could probably watch at 480p or whatever. Probably they don't give you a hardware isolated video codec anymore. I find it really strange, right? I find it disappointing, but leave in the comments below. That is, of course, triggers people. Can we please finish that? Did we build the VM Linux, didn't we? VM Linux, I believe we built, didn't we? Why is this not? Yeah, that otherwise. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's why you need an Epic rather than Threadripper to build the Linux kernel. Like, if you work on the stuff, sure. I mean, if you work all day or all week on the same feature, let's say some LVM2 thing or some IO U-ring or whatever feature, just on Novo or Intel AMD GPU, you only have that once and then you don't need to rebuild that. But if you work on multiple things, like, can we build that already, please? I mean, okay, to be fair, that's probably LVM Clang. So actually, I've not chosen the most performant. This is just it's my default release thumb drive image build thing, so that's Clang LTO. It's actually building 2 times longer for more optimization. So because then it builds 7 minutes instead of 4. Anyway, you probably, I mean, should we? Okay, we wait this. I could actually suspend it shortly. You know what? Let's pause the live stream until this build. Probably only another minute. See you in a second. But yeah, to stress, to unbrick a battery, I always pre-charge them, right? I believe I'm not sure if I had the schematic. If you have the schematic somewhere, feel free to leave a comment below, drop me an email. I always pre-charge them, right? Which is why the other battery is spread open. I also, yeah, I need to test this for the black battery. So I believe I would expect, like, if you don't pre-charge that, so that means hot air and opening that, and then putting a LED power supply on the cells with some current limiter, some 3.7-ish or whatever, 4 volt with, I mean, it doesn't matter, 4 volts, and then current limiter and first 100 milliamp and then 500 milliamp or so for some minutes just to revitalize those cells. That they have more than 0. Like, just wait some seconds or minute until they have 3 voltage, and then plug it in, run this code, and because otherwise I expect, like, if you don't pre-charge that, I expect it doesn't work because the internal microcontroller likely doesn't have voltage, and I'm not sure, maybe it doesn't run at all, and if it has some external voltage, I would expect if the cells are 0, it sets immediately the permanent fault bit again. It's my expectations, I've not tested that, but it would make sense. And yeah, if you do that, I once had an email of someone like, hey, I did it, thank you very much. Report it in the comments below. Maybe Patreon, super thank, super chat, Patreon, GoFundMe, GitHub sponsor, ship, or just some PayPal. And now we built that, and let's see if we have we don't have a new parameter. Why is that? Or is it cache SB? Maybe these are 2 different, SBS. Or is it also SBS? Ah, we have SBS. Oh, maybe it's SBS KO. Ah. SBS KO. Apple unbrick. Yeah, I don't know. Should we rename it? I mean, the thing is, so if you do that later, maybe I rename it. Maybe it should be unbrick Apple. Unbrick permanent fault Apple. The thing is, how long should we make it? I mean, we could make it don't buy broken Apple, NVIDIA, protect by the sword, secret password, whatever, string. I mean, maybe unbrick Apple, unbrick permanent app, unbrick Apple permanent fault. The thing is, I usually simply change such things in the patch. So fix file diff, save it there. So I might rename it, right? If you do this later yourself, if you load that and stuff, like mod info and see what is the name, maybe I change it. Like comments, like if you have the best name, comment below. Linux, so svn sbs is or just disabled there, and then that has some nice name, ACPI, has some patch stuff. What is there? I always signed off by Linux kernel. Is it with a okay, no Linux are signed by, do they want it? Probably like that. And then that's of course a huge change here. And so what I mean with editing the patch, so unbrick. If I don't like the name, instead of extracting, patching and rediffing that, what I usually do is, I mean, the internal variable name is not even, oh wait, we have here, this is also wrong. What have I done here? Is that, maybe it needs to be named the same way, so that would be unbrick Apple permanent fold. Maybe I like this name better, but leave in the comments below what you want to type, like from English sentence of mod probe SB S unbrick Apple PF equals 1 would probably be the most natural to type from the end user of unbricking their battery perspective. Check permanent fold bit and try to unbrick Apple batteries. Unbrick Apple PF permanent fold. If you want this longer, leave in the comments below. So was PF, theoretically that is not Linux kernel. I think they usually say you don't use camel case, whatever. I mean PF is lit, I mean perm fold maybe. Just usual polishing proof of concept code for others and potentially upstream. If you think we should upstream this, leave in the comments below. Question there, it's the usual #1 question, is this Comic Sans? No, that is a professional, commercially licensed comic code, of course. We only use the most professional comic code fonts here for our comical code business. As usual, I hope you enjoyed this and learned something. It would mean a bit if you share, like, subscribe. Have a good day or night, and I hope to see you soon for all the next fun stuff, code and project to come.